Donald Trump was expected to announce a Gaza ceasefire. The ceasefire would be declared only as part of a deal to secure the release of Israeli hostages, according to the report. The announcement comes after Trump stated that good news could soon emerge regarding Iran on the nuclear talks. He also said that we will be hearing good news about Gaza in the next few days, according to other reports too, in the past couple of weeks, stating that, or proving that, the American administration is interested in reaching a ceasefire. They want this to end, and Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't yet. So from the American perspective, they've had talks, and for the first time, this declaration is going to come from a United States president. Is it a way from the American administration to push Israel to the corner and force them into a ceasefire? Perhaps. However, Joe Biden, when he was there back in July or even May 2024, he already said at the time that the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, agreed to a ceasefire deal. And then later on, Benjamin Netanyahu fled from the ceasefire agreement. He then said, no, I did not accept the ceasefire deal. That's not the case. There were UN Security Council resolutions. The United States was calling for a ceasefire. There were reports of pressure, but clearly that didn't work. Are there any hints or any signs that this is going to work now? Perhaps. They are related to what's happening inside of Israel. And we're going to reach what's happening in Israel shortly. That's especially in the relation to the threats to leave the government, especially coming from members in the Haredi community in the Israeli government. Now, another thing that happened today was this report here from Al-Mayadeen that said a Palestinian leader reveals to Al-Mayadeen a ceasefire deal for Gaza, saying that the Palestinian American mediator Bishara Bahbah, who is acting on behalf of the American administration, Steve Witkoff, he actually reached a really good proposal with the Palestinian movement Hamas, saying that we're talking about potentially somewhere between 60 to a 90-day ceasefire. 10 living Israeli prisoners of war will be released in 2 batches, 5 on the first day and 5 on the last day of the ceasefire, some dead bodies too. Immediately, 1,000 trucks a day of aid going into the Gaza Strip, a formula with a timetable to continue the talks about a permanent ceasefire moving forward, with certain guarantees coming from the United States administration that they will force somehow Israel to go into these talks to reach a permanent ceasefire in Gaza after this temporary, again, ceasefire begins. Now, these reports are talking about a new proposal from Steve Witkoff. This isn't the older proposal from Steve Witkoff that Israel claimed it accepted, that had ridiculous proposals for the Palestinian side, where Israel would completely dismantle everything inside of the Gaza Strip, disarm all of the Palestinian resistance, and with all of that, get all of the prisoners of war back immediately, and with all of that, not even commit that the war will end. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu wanted. And these were conditions, by the way, that were added by Benjamin Netanyahu in the past couple of months too. For example, disarming the Palestinian resistance, that wasn't a condition from Israel in the early days, or even just 3-4 months ago. There was no talk about we need to disarm them. Only thing they said that Hamas can't rule Gaza. And from Hamas' perspective, they said, no problem, we're not actually interested in ruling Gaza, although they were democratically elected, but if that's going to be a problem in reaching a ceasefire, no problem, have a technocratic government that is consisting of Palestinian figures who are knowing exactly what they're doing, agreed upon by all Palestinian political and resistance movements too, and by the Palestinian people to manage the day-to-day. However, anything in relation to the Palestinian resistance or to the arms of the Palestinian resistance or the relations of the Palestinian resistance, all of these things are non-negotiable because they are tied with the existence of an occupation, an occupying entity. And that's the thing that the Palestinians have been saying for a very long time. So far, what we can get here before we get to the acceptance of Hamas today of the ceasefire, and then move on to the reports that were leaked by, funny enough, Axios, and we'll get to Axios in a second, that no, actually, Steve Witkoff said they did not accept the ceasefire and they need to do more. We have so far two signs that things were moving forward. Firstly, this declaration from Trump that he was prepared to announce a ceasefire that's going to happen in Gaza. Then a Palestinian leading figure from the Palestinian side, from the Palestinian negotiating side, speaking to Al-Mayadeen, telling them that there is a prospect of a ceasefire. There are positive movements forward. Then there were also movements coming from Israel. What were these movements? These movements were Israel sent a delegation just after they withdrew their delegation from Qatar several days back, and Benjamin Netanyahu told them, that's it, there is no hope. Benjamin Netanyahu was saying that there is no chance that we're going to go ahead with the ceasefire, we're too far apart. All of a sudden today, Benjamin Netanyahu sends his delegation to Cairo. So assuming that the Israeli side, they weren't actually interested in a ceasefire or weren't being pushed to a ceasefire by the American administration with some pressure happening, and there are clear indications of a pressure happening. Now, mind you, not pressure to stop a genocide, pressure to reach a ceasefire. There's a difference between the two. The United States administration and everyone who supported Israel from the beginning to this day and did not take the adequate and relevant action to stop them has contributed to the genocide in one way or another. However, we're talking about a ceasefire. People need to differentiate between the two. He sent a delegation to Cairo. If he sent a delegation to Cairo, that means he's under pressure to get a deal. Is it another act? Could be another act. But at the end of the day, it's coming simultaneously with a declaration from Trump that he will be announcing. He wants to announce ceasefire, which is, by the way, a demand from the Palestinian delegation. Then a Palestinian significant figure from the negotiating delegation in Cairo saying there's significant good progress. And this progress is happening with the introduction of the Palestinian American, Bishara Bahbah, working on behalf of Witkoff, reaching a mutual agreement with Hamas, or a proposal that can be agreed upon by all parties to move ahead with, to at least get the ball rolling with having a ceasefire, getting the aid in, getting the humanitarian relief, and then moving ahead to a ceasefire, a full-blown ceasefire, and then having talks with the American side about certain guarantees. Now, from an Israeli perspective, not only did they send their delegation to Cairo, there are multiple reports in several media outlets in Israel talking about the fact that there might be some sort of acceptance of Hamas not disarming now, but maybe in the future. Things like that. Small bits and details. And at the end of the day, in relation to the ceasefire and the negotiations and the talks, it's all about the details. Israel and the Palestinian side, they are working. There are certain agreements, certain understandings that both parties are fine with. However, it's the small details. And every time there was a movement towards the direction of reaching a deal, of having a ceasefire, Benjamin Netanyahu would come up with a new addition, a new demand that would hinder the prospect of reaching a ceasefire. What's happening with that too in the United States in relation to Israel? In the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about the American administration removing certain figures who are considered to be pro-Israeli, such as Mark Waltz, and the Zionist lobby inside of the Trump administration slowly losing power. Today and yesterday, there were more interesting movements in that direction. With this report here about the U.S. National Security Council staff fired en masse, including Mideast, Israel, and Iran chiefs. So the Trump administration is not only sacking Waltz, other figures too. Now he's sacking people in the National Security Council directly linked with Israel. And these people have been appointed by Mike Waltz himself. According to this report, one of them is the influential far-right activist Laura Loomer, who, according to this report, spreads 9/11 conspiracy theories and promotes QAnon. Now, is this another sign that Trump is removing people who are closely aligned with Israel? Of course it is, clearly. Now, it's not new for Donald Trump to have shifts and shuffling in his administration. That has been very, very evident from his first term. Between 2016 and 2020, Donald Trump changed so many people in his administration that were considered to be core allies of Donald Trump at the time. So when you look at them, you think this is an unbreakable alliance. These people are together all the time. No, at the end of the day, Donald Trump sacked them and he moved on because the man is primarily concerned with himself and getting the things that he wants done. We have this alongside lack of interest and lack of will at top levels inside of Israel, including in the Israeli army, to continue with the war. Benjamin Netanyahu just suggested that he wants to appoint a new person as the head of the Shin Bet, who confirmed to him that I'm going to continue all out with you and not end the war at any cost. I'm just going to continue with you. But that put him at odds with the Israeli IDF chief of staff, who said the priority is to release the prisoners of war. If we go to Gaza, if we have a massive operation in Gaza, we will face a horror scenario, as it was described in the Israeli media, with many losses, which we will get to, by the way, later on. Then, now, he's saying as well, this is not an endless war. We will act briefly. So you have a head of an army in the country saying outright that this is not an endless war. Therefore, saying that, well, basically we need to reach a ceasefire. We can't continue on an all-out war forever, which is what Benjamin Netanyahu wants to portray, that they're going towards an all-out war and this isn't going to end ever. That's not the case. The people in Israel are resisting him. The IDF chief of staff is resisting him. And the people inside of Israel are resisting him. The American administration as well, are opposing what he says to. Now, let's go back slightly to Hamas accepting the Witkoff proposal and what has been said about that. So in Israel, they're saying that Hamas claimed to agree to the Witkoff outline, and Israel insists it's a spin. Hamas officials claimed on Monday afternoon that they had agreed to the mediator's proposal, which they called the Witkoff outline. However, the US President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff claims that he is disappointed by the organization's response, and Israel emphasizes that this is just another spin by Hamas. Where did the statements come from? When did they start? They started and they were spread like wildfire throughout multiple media outlets in the Arab world and in Western media too. However, who said that Steve Witkoff denied that? It was Axios and Barak Ravid, the Zionists. All of a sudden said that Witkoff said on Monday, although there was no official direct confirmation from Witkoff. He could have said it. It hasn't been confirmed yet. It's causing a lot of confusion at the moment. Did he say it? Did he not say it? They didn't specify a time. They didn't spy exactly how. Did he say it exactly? Sources told, and he told Axios. Okay, well, he could have said that before. Is he referring to the same statement? Is he referring to that same agreement that has been reached by his own representative in Cairo with the Palestinian side, and the Palestinian side accepted a ceasefire? And if not, and if he wasn't aware of it, then Steve Witkoff clearly isn't that involved or that engaged in what's happening with the ceasefire talks. And that's, well, not very likely. I mean, people can make mistakes, but that isn't very likely because Steve Witkoff was, at the end of the day, the man who told Benjamin Netanyahu that the hell that Trump was asking or calling for, saying that it will come in the Middle East, includes Israel, and then Benjamin Netanyahu is pushed into phase one of the ceasefire, only for Israel to go and break the ceasefire again, like they have with the initial temporary ceasefire that took place just a couple of months after the 7th of October. Now, what is Benjamin Netanyahu saying with all of this, and what are his statements? Is he looking towards a ceasefire, or is he not looking for a ceasefire? What's happening exactly with Benjamin Netanyahu? Well, Benjamin Netanyahu made a very interesting statement today. And he said that if we don't reach a ceasefire today, we will reach a ceasefire tomorrow. Now, there was a lot of talk after Benjamin Netanyahu made that statement. Several people in Israel, especially with the families of the prisoners of war, were very happy. But then they had a different clarification from his office. So this was the report coming from Israel. PM hopes for good news tomorrow. He said, if there won't be good news today, there will be good news tomorrow, he said. And we're working to get a deal. Now, from the tone of Benjamin Netanyahu and from his statement, it appeared to be that he's actually saying, I really hope that we're going to, if we're not going to get good news today, we're going to get good news tomorrow, alongside all of the other reports that Hamas accepted a ceasefire deal, with the previous statements from Trump that hopefully will announce a ceasefire agreement towards the weekend. But then his office said that he didn't mean it concretely. He actually made a statement that is more broad, as in, if we won't reach an agreement today, we'll reach it tomorrow. You know how we always say, if it wouldn't happen today, it's going to happen tomorrow. Now, this led to a lot of disappointment amongst Israel, especially the families of the prisoners of war. And then they started to say that, this Gideon's chariots situation is probably going to lead us to, another Hannibal directive. And we don't want another Hannibal directive. Don't make this another Hannibal directive. How is that sitting with Benjamin Netanyahu's talks internally with the people who are threatening to resign? There are people who in the Israeli government threatening to resign, and now it's actually escalating even further, with one of the senior ministers inside of the Benjamin Netanyahu government making very dangerous statements against the Likud party led by Benjamin Netanyahu. He's the labor minister, Yoav Ben Tzur. Said that the proposed conscription law and the Likud MKs who, according to him, want to erase the Haredi public from the public sphere. He said studying Torah will not be considered a criminal offense in the Jewish state. So we have an outright attack from a minister in the Netanyahu government against the leading party, the party that is led by Benjamin Netanyahu, the Likud party, saying that these people want to erase the Haredi community from all of the Israeli public. They want us out. Then there are serious talks about people resigning from the Israeli government. With this report here in Ma'arif saying that it seems that relations between Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Haredi parties have recently hit a snag from which it will be difficult to recover. Here they're saying what the rabbis really think of Netanyahu and what will lead to the dissolution of the coalition, stating more criticism coming from the rabbis in Israel against Benjamin Netanyahu and against all of these attempts by the Netanyahu government to force conscription and to punish people who will not actually follow the rules of the government and the orders of the Israeli government. And it didn't just end there. There are now outright considerations to collapse the government of Israel, with this recent statement from the leader of the Lithuanian current or like line, considering withdrawing from the coalition due to the delay in the exemption from the conscription. Rabbi Moshe Hillel Hirsch spoke with the son of Rabbi of Gur, Nehemiah Alter, and said that the responsibility of the Degel Torah party withdrawing from the coalition due to the failure to advance the conscription law is being considered. Rabbi Hirsch said that before making a decision on the matter, he will speak with the other Haredi leaders and MKs from the party. So there are concrete moves coming from leading figures in the coalition of Israel saying that we are going to resign. Why? Because they know what they're expecting. So they're reaching a boiling point, an end of the road scenario, because Benjamin Netanyahu isn't at a level where he can continue and drag this more and more and have these new sort of deals. He's asking for people to go and die for him in Gaza in this genocide, but he is refusing to force, well, almost half of the population to go and fight. So therefore, it's increasing the argument. It's strengthening the argument that's coming against him from the population, primarily the secular population, telling him that why are we having all of this burden? Why are we paying the price for all of this genocide and your war when you don't want to send the people from the Haredi community? This is making this is causing a lot of trouble inside of Israel.